By 1945, the man who once stood at the peak of Europe's power was hiding underground, listening to distant explosions, watching an empire collapse. But the real question is not how Hitler lost World War II. It is why he was destined to lose it. Because long before the Allied armies marched into Berlin, the seeds of defeat had already been planted by arrogance, obsession, and a complete misunderstanding of the modern world. At the start, Hitler's rise looked unstoppable. In the 1930s, Germany rearmed at breathtaking speed, the economy recovered, the military modernized, and Hitler's early gambles paid off. Austria fell without a fight. Czechoslovakia was dismembered while Europe hesitated. Then Poland collapsed in weeks. To the world, Hitler looked like a strategic genius. To himself, he looked infallible. That belief would destroy him. Hitler did not just lead Germany, he controlled it. Decisions flowed upward, not downward. Generals were expected to obey, not to question. Early victories convinced Hitler that instinct mattered more than expertise. Professional military advice became optional. And when reality contradicted Hitler's beliefs, reality was dismissed. This was the first real reason he lost the war. Nowhere was this more disastrous than on the Eastern Front. In 1941, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. It was the largest military assault in human history. Over 3 million German soldiers crossed the border, convinced they would win in months. Hitler believed the Soviet state was weak. He believed its people were inferior. He believed Moscow would fall before winter. Every one of those beliefs was wrong. Germany advanced quickly at first, but speed masked a fatal flaw. The Wehrmacht was not prepared for a long war of attrition. Supply lines stretched hundreds of miles. Fuel ran short. Equipment broke down. Winter clothing never arrived. And when winter came, it came without mercy. Temperatures dropped, engines froze, weapons jammed, soldiers died not from bullets, but from cold. Still, Hitler refused retreat. Not one step back, he ordered. Entire armies were sacrificed to preserve his pride. The Battle of Stalingrad marked the turning point. It began as a symbolic obsession. Hitler wanted the city because it carried Stalin's name. What started as strategy became personal. Street by street, room by room, the fighting was brutal beyond imagination. When German generals begged for withdrawal, Hitler refused. When supplies ran out, he promised air support that could never arrive. When encirclement was complete, he demanded the Sixth Army fight to the last man. They did. Over 300,000 German soldiers were lost. From that moment on, Germany was no longer winning the war, it was surviving it. But Hitler's failures were not limited to the East. In the West, he made another catastrophic mistake, underestimating industrial power. Germany could fight brilliantly, but it could not produce endlessly. The United States could. American factories turned out planes, tanks, ships, and ammunition at a scale the world had never seen. While German cities were bombed into rubble, American production increased. Hitler believed technology alone could compensate. He poured resources into wonder weapons, advanced tanks, jet fighters, rockets. They were impressive. They were also too late.
Wars are not won by miracles. They're won by logistics. And Germany was being crushed by math. Another critical reason for Hitler's defeat was his inability to build lasting alliances. Nazi ideology made cooperation difficult. Allies were treated as subordinates. Resources were extracted, not shared. Occupied territories were ruled with brutality, not pragmatism. This turned potential partners into enemies. In Eastern Europe, many initially saw Germany as liberation from Soviet control, but Nazi racial policies quickly turned hope into hatred. Resistance movements grew. Partisans sabotaged supply lines. Entire regions became hostile territory. Instead of expanding his strength, Hitler multiplied his enemies. Then there was the air war. Hitler never truly understood strategic bombing. Early in the war, Germany had the advantage in the air, but rather than focusing on destroying British industry and infrastructure, the Luftwaffe shifted to terror bombing cities. The result was catastrophic. Britain did not break. Instead, it adapted. Radar improved, fighter production increased, pilots gained experience, and Germany lost air superiority, a loss it would never recover from. Later, Allied bombers dominated the skies, reducing German factories, railways, and cities to ruins. By the end, Germany could barely move troops without being seen from above. Yet perhaps the most destructive reason Hitler lost the war was internal. Fear replaced competence. As defeat loomed, Hitler purged officers, ignored intelligence, and blamed conspiracies. Generals were fired for realism. Promotions went to loyalty, not skill. Decision-making slowed. Communication collapsed. Reality became whatever Hitler wanted to hear. When the Allies landed in Normandy, Hitler slept through the initial reports. When commanders requested reinforcements, he delayed. When flexibility was needed, he enforced rigidity. The war demanded adaptation. Hitler demanded obedience. The final months were a tragic spiral. Germany was exhausted. Fuel was gone. Soldiers were teenagers and old men. Cities were ruins. Still, Hitler insisted on counteroffensives, miracle victories, total resistance. He believed defeat was impossible. The world had already moved on. In April 1945, as Soviet forces closed in on Berlin, Hitler remained underground, issuing orders to units that no longer existed, commanding armies that had already been destroyed. The war he had unleashed consumed him. Not because Germany lacked courage, not because his soldiers lacked skill, but because leadership rooted in ego cannot survive reality. Hitler lost World War II not because fate turned against him. He lost because modern war punishes arrogance, because ideology cannot replace logistics, because control cannot replace competence, and because no matter how loudly a leader shouts, history listens only to results. The Third Reich was meant to last 1,000 years. It lasted 12. And its fall stands as a reminder. Power built on illusion collapses the moment it meets the truth.